this. New shirt, different day. This is taking a long time. Now, in all fairness, it's not like I'm working like for 8 hours or 10 hours a day on this thing, but you know, a couple hours here, a couple hours there, it's adding up. Anyway, guess what? New day, cool new thing. I actually discovered who made this cool piece of artwork, and it's this artist that goes by Grand Failure. I found this person on the Adobe stock website, and I would encourage you guys to check out this artist's work because it's really, really stunning. I mean, Grand Failure, weird name, but I would say is anything but a failure. I hope this person doesn't mind me using this art, piece of artwork that they created to, to kind of replicate and get inspired by. So hopefully they're cool with that. But definitely do check it out. I'm gonna post like the link in the descriptions below, so that you guys can check out like this artist's work because it's really, really amazing. So cool, and the nice thing is that I was able to download just a preview, but it's a little bit better resolution. Where did we leave off yesterday? We left off at this. So we basically have our textures. We have our textures for our buildings, which is just a plain flat texture with like some lights, and I think it's going to be fine for what we need, especially after we add some atmospherics. And then we have our ground textured, which we're reasonably happy with. So what's next? The big thing that I really like about this painting is this big clouds. They're like this. They're a very prominent feature in in this composition. What else? Well, I mean, if this was somebody else, I would say let's just kind of go to Gumroad or ArtStation and pick up some VDB, pre-made VDBs. As a matter of fact, I have a bunch of collections of pre-made VDBs, but where's the fun in that, right? I mean, let's create some clouds from scratch, because that's how we roll here. Okay, so geometry. How am I going to build this cloud? First, I want to give it like the basic kind of shape, and as I said, let's start with this guy. Just kind of like thin, flat at the bottom, kind of big shapes, not super curly, just some kind of big kind of noise curves. Let's see. Let's do it with some Metaballs. Metaball. You guys know what a metaball is? Metaball is, honestly, I don't really know. It's like a deformable, weird thing, but I think it's gonna do the trick for us. For the clouds, we don't have to work on a super large scale. We can work on a much smaller scale and then just kind of size them up, because I don't want to go crazy with simulation time and making them like kind of uber full of voxels, and then they become this gigantic 10 gigabyte VDB files that I really don't think we need. Okay, so we have one metaball, and I wanted to, I don't know, just take like a flat ovally shape. Let's do that. So maybe 10 in Y and maybe another 10 in Z, 5 in Z. And what I want to do is there's like this kind of like more like it's thin, but then there's this kind of bump in the middle. So actually I can even make it a little bit thinner. Let's make this 0.5. Okay, so it's nice and thin. And then I'm going to create another metaball. Okay. And this metaball, here, let me put like a little template so we can see roughly. I'm just going to keep this fairly round. Let's make it, all right, how about 3 and 3? So it's looking a little bit like a flying saucer. Maybe let's move it slightly so it's not exactly centered. So here's where the magic of Metaballs comes in. So I got one Metaball, two Metaballs, and check out what happens if I merge them together. Whoa, that's not, I didn't want that. I want merge. So check this out. I got one, and I merge it with two, and now they kind of create this composite, like, blended shape, which is kind of neat. Actually, you know what I'm going to do with the second Metaball? I'm going to offset it and bring it up a little bit, because we want our bottom to be fairly flat. So let's do it that way. Maybe I can even make it a hair wider. Ew, that's too much. 4. 4 is good. Okay. Let's say that this is our first silhouette of our first cloud. So this is just like a general guide shape. That's all it is. Because what we want to do is we want to use the Houdini really, really excellent cloud. They actually have a shelf here. Cloud stuff here, which is really neat. So this is just like a guide shape for us to then, for Houdini to work its magic and turn it into a cloud. So let's do that. Let's, well, I'm just gonna highlight this and click on the cloud shelf button and see what it does. So it kind of gave me something, which is okay, not great. Let's make it better. So if I bump up the resolution, I think the resolution is a little small. I think we could go higher. If I middle click, I'll see like roughly how many voxels I'm working with. And right now there's like about like 37,000 voxels, which is pretty coarse. So I can bump it up to, I don't know, I'm just going to keep bumping it until it's, you know, as long as Houdini is responsive and as long as the calculations are happening fairly rapidly. 400,000 voxels, I think that's pretty good. The other thing I can do is I can scatter shapes, and what this does is I think it's scattering some points, I think, and then it's using some deformation for those points. Let me make this a little bit larger so you can kind of see. So if I click this fill source, you'll see what starts happening. We get like this kind of bumpiness. You know, it's kind of a noise, and it's a little bit difficult to visualize right now. But if I visualize as polygons, there's this little checkbox here, then you'll see a little bit better what's happening. So it's I think it's just adding a bunch of smaller metaballs. I think that's what it's doing. But it's given us a little bit more of this kind of cloudy, bumpy, you know, pillowy shape. Maybe a little too much so. So let's maybe like kind of change a few things. Shape size, let's go to 3. Okay, that's a little bit better. I mean, remember, you know, from our reference image, sorry about this Adobe stock, I guess I should probably just buy, like, so just so we can see it. But anyway, but you know, we have this fairly big shapes to it, and we're gonna like do some more with it with noise once we actually kind of work at the density level. But just as a basic kind of guideline, this is not a bad place to be, I think. You know, we can always refine it later. What does some of this other stuff do? Scatter multiplier. Okay, this is kind of calming it down a little bit. What about noise minimum? Nah, let's leave it at 0. Noise max. Okay, that's too much. What if we lower it a bit? I think it was fine at the default. The default was fine. We can change the noise, blah blah. We can use secondary shapes, which is like smaller bumps, but I don't think we need it. I really don't. Not right now. Not at this coarse level of shaping our clouds. So that's it. Density set at 10. We can turn off this guy. The other thing I'm going to do is actually we have our environment light, but it's really not helping us in this particular case. So I'm just going to create a distant light. 3D light uses basically the Houdini built-in lights. That it's slightly maybe tweaked for 3D light. But I still like to create them from the 3D light shelf if possible. So I have a distant light. I'm just going to reset the origin because it doesn't really make a difference. And I'm just going to try to get like a little bit of a better angle here so you can see. So I got this kind of like general flat pillowy cloud, but I want the bottom to be really flat, right? Because a reference, these clouds, they're pillowing on top, but then on the bottom they're pretty flat. I'm assuming it has to do some sort of like atmospheric pressure or heat or I don't know. Damn it, Jim, I'm not a meteorologist. But how do we do that? How do we flatten this? Well, this cloud node gives us another cool little function, which is under scatter shape, under flatten. It gives us a flatten option that can help. So let's engage this and let's see if we can kind of, there you go, put the bottom scale at 1 and immediately we have like a flatter bottom, which is kind of nice. 2, even flatter, look at this. And then the top scale, I don't need to flatten. If I go negative, so I can actually raise the top, but let's not do that quite yet. But you know, let's keep this in mind. So this is how you can kind of get like a flatter bottom with some more features on top. But we're not done yet. So what we really need to do, let's save, is add some noise, because these kind of ball shapes are fine if you're doing some cartoon, some Studio Ghibli sort of stuff, but it's not very realistic. So we need like some noise on top of it, and Houdini gives us a cloud noise. Look at that. So if we instance the cloud noise, instantly we get like something infinitely cooler looking and much more realistic. This is without. This is with. Look at that. Much, much cooler. We're still working at pretty low resolution. I mean, we're still in the... we got more voxels now. 850,000. I think that's probably good. Because, I mean, keep in mind that we're going to be looking at this from really far away. Plus, we're going to do some other tricks when we go and render with the density and stuff. It's not going to be quite this thick. So I really don't think we need to go crazy with the voxel density. As a matter of fact, I mean, if I really wanted to, I could even lower this a bit, but let's leave it as it is for now. Okay, let's mess with this a little bit. If we push the amplitude 0.5, yeah, it's crazy. 0.2, okay. I think like 0.1 was fine. Maybe the problem is that the noise is very, very high frequency right now. Actually, like let's put it back to 0.5 just to see what we're doing, because you can see like that the noise is just like really creating this like small little details, and we don't really want small details. We want big details, right? So let's bring the... I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to bring the roughness down. That should tame it a little bit. But really, what's going to make the biggest difference is the element size. Is how large the noise that's being applied to create these shapes. So right now it's pretty small, so if we make it 1, we should start seeing that we start kind of getting a little bit more of a larger features. Let's make it 2. 2 might be like too much. It's about 1.4. Okay, I mean I'm kind of liking this. The amplitude is still pretty high. And let's see if we make the roughness large again now. With the larger element size, I can go with a higher roughness. I think it kind of makes for a little bit more interesting shape. But as I said, the amplitude is pretty big right now, so let's bring it down to 0.2 maybe. 0.25. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And here's the other cool thing that you can do, because you might have noticed that now we lost a little bit of our flat bottom. So what the noise gives us is this other little checkbox, which is up vector fall off. And if we enable it, you'll see exactly what this does. It basically does it so that the bottom is fairly unaffected by the noise. And then as we get progressively higher on the y-axis, the noise becomes more and more prominent. Okay? Pronounced. Is prominent a word? I don't know. It should be, if it isn't. So, cool. Except maybe a little too smooth on the bottom. Let's maybe lower this bias. Get like a little bit better stuff on the bottom. But but at least we're still kind of maintaining this flat bottom and more kind of interesting at the top. Maybe now that I've done this, I can go a little higher with my amplitudes. And maybe bring this, smooth out the bottom a little bit more. Let's go with 0.5. I mean, I think this is it's not a bad place to be. It really isn't. My only complaint is maybe that the cloud itself could be a little bit wider. Like if I'm trying to cover this much, maybe. I don't know. I'm not convinced that that's what I need to do. But if I want to, I can go in my Metaball and I can just make the radius 15 in the y-axis and then go back here and it should have made it wider. I wish it would taper down a little bit more. I think the problem is this this guy, the scatter shapes that are also adding stuff at the edges. Can I do something about it? The primary, the scatter shapes. What happens if I bring this? Ooh. Okay. If I change the spatial scale to a lower number, because I can make it really huge. But if I change it to 0.3, now we're keeping a little bit more of our original contour. As I said, all I'm trying to do is just retain some of the original shape of the cloud that I had. Maybe what I can do is I can make this a little bit taller. I just want to differentiate a little bit. Maybe I can make this guy. Oh, what do we have? Something must have happened here. So let me revert. Let me actually. I accidentally must have created an expression and I didn't want to. So let me delete the channel and let's make it 0.2. So it's too small. 0.25. No. It needs to be tall enough for the voxels to pick up on it. This is what it's about, though. I mean, it's really just about kind of messing around with stuff and kind of letting a little bit your sense of aesthetic guide you. But I don't know, like for our first one, I think it's probably fine. We lost some voxels. It looks, yeah, we lost a lot of voxels. It looks like maybe we need to up the resolution a little bit. Let's go back under the volume. Let's make it 600. How many voxels is that? 400. As long as I'm under 1 million, I think I'm okay. So 1 million voxels is a lot, but let's go 700. Okay, let's go 800, and let's call it. Just looking for, you know, more resolution for some of those details, while at the same time not getting super carried away. Okay, so what do I want to do next? Because I want to be efficient with my rendering, and I also want to be able to, you know, kind of use 3D Light, which has a certain kind of workflow. If you're using Redshift, I don't think you have to do this next step. If you're using Octane, you might, but I think it's good practice anyway for several reasons. So what I want to do is I want to convert this to a VDB. And I'm going to use a VDB convert. I don't know, but I think this is going to do the trick. So let's put it to the test. File cache. Okay, and we're going to save this as, I'm going to put it wherever my geometry lives. I'm not going to call it hip name, I'm just going to give it a name, and it's going to be called flat cloud 1, but I have to do dot VDB or else it doesn't know that it's a VDB. Basically $hip means that wherever my Houdini file is saved, then put it in that same directory. That's what this $hip means. And then there's a /, which is called geo, so it's going to create a folder called geo, and then inside that folder it's going to put this file right here. And I don't want to save the frame range, I just want to save the current frame, and that's it. And if I click save to disk, that should do the trick. Let's bring it into Houdini. I don't want to use this cloud. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to call this cloud generator, because we might recycle and do more stuff with it. But I do want to use a new geometry, and this I'm going to put thin cloud 1. And inside this geometry, I want to bring a file. Okay, so I'm going to point this file to the VDB that we created. Okay, so now we have the VDB that we brought in. It's very low resolution, as I said, but don't let this scare you right now, because we're going to fix it. And the way I want to do it is I want to load it as a packed disk primitive. And this is going to make it look like an ugly box because it says display as bounding box, so I'm just going to display as full geometry, and that's going to give us our VDB cloud. Cool. And let's give this a green color. Hold on, where's my color? Yeah. Green, because this is going to be something that we're going to render. And we're going to put it into our render thing. Okay, cool. So what next? I say let's bring in our ground. And let's bring in a reference building just so that we can see a little bit what the hell we're doing. And let's go back to our render cam. And now that we have this thin cloud, so it's really, really small. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it a lot larger. Size this a little bit. Uniform scale 10, uniform scale 100. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. And let's bring it up here roughly. And a little bit to the x-axis. Oh my god, Houdini makes this so much more difficult than it needs to be. Minus 250. $300 in the air. Minus 300. Minus 500. And we can also like distort this. I mean, we're just dealing with like a volume. You can get away with murder with volume. So if we wanted to, we could also not do that. Could make it thinner and I can make it wider. But for right now, let's just keep it as is. Okay. So we want to be able to see it in the renderer, and in order to be able to see it in the renderer, I need a material for it. So let's create a material, and 3D Light gives us a really handy dandy VDB volume. So I'm just going to call this thin cloud 1. I really don't need to see all this stuff because I have all my controls here. Anyway, let's launch the IPR and see where we are with this. So, start the IPR. There you are. Okay, cool. We got a cloud. Look at that. And from this distance, as I said, it doesn't look half bad. So there's a few things going on. First of all, it's a little too thick. I mean, I do want the cloud to to be fairly solid, because in this illustration you're not seeing through them even when they're like really thin. But maybe this might be a little too solid. So we're gonna go and make some adjustments to our thin cloud. First of all, right now it's using like internal multiple scattering, which is really, really awesome. But for right now, let's turn it off. That's gonna make it like really, really dense. So let's lower the density, 0.1, 0.01, 0.005. Okay, I mean I'm starting to like that a little bit more. Let's go into our transparency and let's bring this up to full white and maybe half transparency. This is mostly going to affect our edges of the cloud. It's going to make the edges feel a little bit more transparent, but it all goes to, kind of make it feel a little more real, like it's actually made of vapor. So now that we've started the transparency, I think the density can be a little bit higher. So 0.01, I think is probably going to be where we want to be. Okay, so that's a start for our cloud. I mean, there's a lot that is not working right now. Starting with the lighting, and obviously we're looking at a fairly low resolution kind of work in progress. But hey, gotta start somewhere. Now we need more clouds. Let's try like a slightly different kind of strategy, and I'll show you like the second one, and then maybe what I'll do is I'll stop recording and create the other one, but at least you guys know like different kind of ways to go about it. So I'm just gonna create a box. I'm just going to zoom in to our box. Hold on. Our box. That's what we want. So this one we're going to do not with Metaballs, but with a box. And let's start by giving this box a rough kind of 10 by 5 by 2 maybe? No, I think 1. 1 is fine. We could go even a little bit bigger with it, more like 20. Okay, so what I want to do is just kind of change this from polygon to polygon mesh. I'm just going to give it more polygons. We probably don't really need as many up here. Let's give it like 16, 16, I don't know. Just looking to get like some geometry because I'm just going to sculpt it a little bit. So let's start by, I don't know, just let's start doing some sculpting here. Because what I want to do is I want to end up with something that loosely resembles this shape, so that it's kind of flat at the bottom but kind of tapers up this way, like so. Okay, so this, let's click here, let's maybe like start selecting some stuff. Let's select all of our top face. I'm just hitting like space 1 and space 2 to switch between the top view and the perspective view. Okay, so now that we have that, let's rotate it. Let's raise it. Rotate some more. Raise it some more. Maybe offset it a little bit. I don't know. Why not? I'm just trying to get like this type of thing going. Okay, and the other thing I want to do, so this is like my general shape. I can go even more aggressive with it, because I'm a little bit worried that when I then bring it into my my cloud node, that we're gonna lose some of this height. So I just wanna be a little bit exaggerated with it. Cool. The other thing I can do is I can add a mountain node, since we have a little bit of kind of polygons to work with here. And maybe just give it a height of 2. And I can also say do it everywhere except maybe here. Don't do it on these points. Don't do it on the bottom 2 rows. Oh, the opposite. Where to do it, where to apply the noise. So I'm just going to click on this guy again and just say apply the noise on the top 2 sets of points. So if I did that, so I don't know, like we just have a little bit more variation. It's going to help us, maybe, maybe not. How about that? Make 3. I don't know. It's kind of crazy looking, but anything to give us a little bit of more organic kind of thing to start with. Also, you know, like this, at this stage, it also looks like maybe it slopes up on the bottom as well. Maybe. So maybe we can do the same thing here. Just go and I want to be in polygon mode. Select maybe these guys. I'm still doing this the wrong way. Here, let's go from bottom viewport. I think it's this side, maybe like so. Did I select the right side? Yeah. And maybe let's kind of bring this guy up a little bit. So I'm just gonna go to my rotate. I don't know. That's all. This might be rather useless, but I don't know. It's part of like the creative process that I wanted to show you guys. Is like a lot of times you do stuff, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it's unnecessary. A lot of times it's unnecessary. Okay, so we have our basic shape, hit save, and let's pump it into a cloud node and see what comes out. Poof. So we have the beginning of something. This is very, very low res, so let's bump up to 200. How many voxels is that? Go 300. It's probably fine for now. However, now that we have this basic shape for our second cloud, let's also do our scatter shapes. Visualizing as polygons. And where's fill source? Boom. So once again, this looks like some weird, looks like a mutant popcorn. That's what it looks like to me. It's crazy looking. Because our shape size, it's a little too small. Okay. And spatial scale. Spatial scale, shape size. Just once again trying to get like these kind of larger shapes. Scatter multiplier. Did we play with that last time? Okay. I mean, I'm not like, I don't want to overthink it. I just want to get in the general ballpark because as you can see, the render engine and working with the density and even kind of reshaping like the size of the VDB will really do the trick most of the time. So this is just a way for me to kind of get in the general ballpark. I'm just looking at the silhouette more than anything. And our cloud noise is really going to do the trick with the rest. So this is what we got. It looks like crap right now, but let's add a cloud noise and see what that gives us. So it's starting to feel a little bit better. Let's bring up the amplitude, make the element larger. How are we doing on the voxelization? Ooh, we're over 1 million. Maybe I could go even, then let's bring the resolution a little bit lower, maybe like 250. Though 1 million is probably fine. Realistically speaking, I forget. I think I was watching Stephen Nipping's tutorial, and I think he was higher than this as far as the amount of voxels. I love that guy, by the way. If you get a chance, definitely check out the Stephen Nipping tutorials. I think it's pretty high up on my top 5 favorite tutorials out there. So let's bring the roughness even a little bit higher. Let's make the amplitude a little higher. And let's do our up vector fall off because we don't want the bottom to be overly animated. So this kind of makes it flat again, maybe 0.5. Okay, I mean, it's something. I'm not gonna mess around with it much more than this. because this is not a tutorial on making perfect clouds, it's just a tutorial on making decent clouds. So hit save, bring another, I'm just gonna option click on this guy and click on this guy, and what I'm gonna do is I don't want to load from disk, and I'm gonna call this flat cloud 2. Okay, and save to disk. Everything else should be fine. Click save and load from disk and enable it. Where is it? Here's our cloud. Look at that, and it's large because I just dragged and dropped this, so it's literally copying our transform that I had before. Except I don't want it here, I want it maybe over here. But I'm looking at this, and this is, let me look through my render cam. The shape is kind of in the general ballpark, but let's move it here, and maybe it's a little too large on top. Let's make this 0.5, about 0.7. Okay, and the other problem that I have is my distant light is actually, let me reset it. Ooh. It's coming from the wrong side, because we want it to be from the left side, right? We want to, this distant cloud, it's, the sun's just like kind of setting somewhere in the far distance, so it's kind of like, you know, all the highlights are on this side and the shadows are more here. You can see it in the buildings. This side is in light and this side is in shadow. Light, shadow. So we want our distant light, which is kind of our sun, I'm just going to rename it sun, to basically reflect that. So we want it to, actually, you know what, I'm going to make it visible, and I'm just going to make it nice and huge on the icon scale, because I want to see what this thing looks like. Okay, see, now I can kind of see a little bit better where the direction is. So I'm just gonna make it go around this side, and maybe it's not quite very flat to the horizon, so I want the sun to be still like a little high in the sky, so maybe something like that for now. And maybe let's bring up some of these guys here too. And while I'm at it, here's a little trick for you guys. So if you right click where it says color, if you left click, you get this guy, right? But if you left click, check this out, left click, you get these other options, including set to Kelvin temperature. And we can actually select here, it's giving you some actual Kelvin values for the light white balance, and we can kind of select something, you know, horizon daylight, moonlight, so we can kind of go like fairly warm in here. I'm gonna go like, for right now, horizon daylight, which is gonna warm it up a little bit, but when we do our final look, kind of look dev, we're probably going to want to go a lot more aggressive. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop now, because, you know, I don't need to like really spend another 2 hours just showing you how to create additional clouds. You pretty much have the gist of it. And I'm back. So this is where we left off. Then we had like these two initial clouds here, and we still needed to add some clouds in the background, because if we look at our reference thing, we have big clouds in the back, clouds here. So basically, here's what I ended up doing. I did a few things behind the scenes, but I figured I don't know, like you get the gist. Like the important thing is that you understand what it is that I'm doing to create the scene, and then you can kind of adjust it to taste. First of all, I fine-tuned my sunlight a little bit so that it matches a little bit more like this kind of orangey kind of thing that we got going here. So that was one of the things that I did. Let's see. The other thing that I did was I just created 3 clouds in total that I'm then using in my like in my scene. I'm just kind of scattering them around. I did change a couple things, just so you know. So what I did is I amped up the cloud noise, and the other thing I did was I increased the resolution of the cloud. Because if you remember, we were, I don't know, around 1.5 million voxels, and now we are like roughly 10 times that. And what I did, I switched this from max axis to by size, and just kind of adjusted the division size so that it would get me somewhere around the 20 million-ish voxels. Why can't I say that? What the hell is wrong with me now? It's that after lunch haze, right? So yeah, I mean, like this other cloud that I have here. Here, let's just kind of. I mean, basically, this is my 3 clouds. I have like this, that's like small, and that's kind of like flat at the bottom. I have this other one that's kind of nice and fat. And this is 26 million voxels, so it's pretty large, but it's in the grand scheme of things, it's not huge. And then I have a third one that I generated, and this one is like I wanted to have a basis for the very, very distant one, so I made this a lot longer, and this is about like 15 million voxels, so it's a little bit larger. So basically, like this guy is really like the most kind of detailed one of the bunch. And my file sizes I was trying to keep my file size somewhere within 20 megs per cloud, which I think is fine. So then like the next thing I did is simply scatter them. I just made copies of these and I scattered them around my scenes, around my scene, just one. And basically I wanted like the 2 clouds that are part of my this group right here, and then I wanted like some that are well beyond the city in the distance, which would be these guys. And I stretched them out a little bit. I wanted to kind of give it this kind of stretched out kind of vibe. I don't know, there's something about it that I like. It's almost like a anamorphic lens sort of effect. And that's about it. I mean, as a matter of fact, just so you know, this guy is the same as that guy. These 2 are like the same cloud. I'm just reusing it. And I think it's fine because it's being kind of partially hidden by this guy. So yeah, that's good enough. And then this guy is the same as that guy, except this guy I flipped on the y-axis. So that once again, it's just good enough that people don't think that they're seeing the same exact cloud. But I mean, as I said before, the human eye the human brain wants to kind of make things more realistic than they actually are. So the human brain will just say, oh, they're clouds and they're off in the distance, and and they're different. Of course they're different. So I made like the volume material for our near clouds and then one for our far clouds. And right now they're like exactly the same, but let me show you why. Because if I look at this image, or reference photo, the near clouds, I don't know, they just feel like more thick, and then the distant ones just kind of feel a little bit more fluffy to me. So let's fire up the IPR. And yeah, I mean, that's what our scene is looking like right now. And yeah, it's getting there. Like, and as I said, I did a little bit of look dev on our sunlight. I just kind of gave it this really, really orangey, reddish sort of vibe. Oh, and I did another thing in 3D Light. You can do this. Under my transparency, instead of having this transparency color being white, I changed it to an orangey kind of color, and it's basically defining what the outer kind of edges of the cloud, how transparent they are, and how much we can kind of see a little bit inside our cloud. Okay, so let's add some haze, because that's also gonna help us with the distance, with the feeling of distance here. In Redshift, there's actually a fog or atmosphere sort of setting in the render settings, also in the ROP. But 3D Light works a little bit different. It's a little bit closer to the way Arnold works, if you guys have ever used Arnold. And basically what we need to do is first we need to create an atmosphere material. There's a special material for 3D Light called atmosphere, and we're just going to change it to, it's not a fog, it's haze. It's like this kind of atmospheric kind of haze. So first we're going to put that, and then we're going to go back into our ROP, and under the atmosphere space, under scene elements, we're just going to click on this guy and point it to our haze. Okay, cool. So give it a second for our IPR to update, and you guys will see exactly where this is going. So this is way, way, way too thick. I mean, we can't see anything. This is like insanely thick haze. So we just need to like basically change the density. That's all. That's all we need to do. So 0.0 or 0.1 is not enough. Let's try 0.01. 0.01 is still too thick. I think a lot of it has to do with like the immense scale of this scene too. It's just like this haze is covering a lot of distance, so we need to make it very, very sparse. Let's try 0.001. Okay, we're starting to see something. It's still too thick, but you can kind of see where this is going. So at least we're seeing a little bit of our ground nearby, so that's kind of nice. Let's add one more 0.0001. All right, so now we have, we can see a lot more of our scene. I think it's still too thick. If I reference this photo, there's a little bit of haze here, but it's not crazy. Let's try adding another 0. Okay, I mean, I'm kind of liking this. I mean, this is basically, I think, the right vibe. I mean, maybe let's change this from a 1 to a 2, so that we're kind of making it a little bit like hazier, but at the same time, not going too crazy here. Let's do one more atmospheric effect, because if you look at the way haze behave in the natural world, and the artist also kind of understood this, is that there's a little bit more thickness down towards the bottom than it is as we get higher up into the atmosphere. It's almost like these particles of sand or whatever they are, they tend to collect a little bit lower, or even moisture maybe, I don't know. So I have my cloud generator node. I might as well just stick everything in here that's got to do with clouds. Okay, so let's make this a little bit brighter and also cut out of it. We're gonna make a box, and I'm gonna highlight this box and hit space G so that we can get close to it. And what I want to do with this box, I just want to size it a little bit. I want it to be 10 in the X, 1 in the Y, and 10 in the Z. As a matter of fact, it can even be like 0.5. Okay, cool. By the way, if you guys are wondering, I have like my little brightness adjustments here at the bottom. It even has like a gamma adjustment, and you can even kind of put a LUT if I want to. The way you get this, if you're curious, is you go under perspective, you click on this, you left click on this, and then you just say that you want to, you just check the correction toolbar. This is how you get this stuff down at the bottom. There's other stuff that you can kind of view, but for me, this is just the correction toolbar. Is just want to have these at the bottom here that I can kind of use to adjust my brightness in the viewport. It helps. Okay, cool. So we have this. Let's slap a cloud. And even though it's not really a cloud, the only reason why we're doing this is just simply, it's just a way to turn it into a volume, real simply, with just one node. And we can even kind of change the density to 1, something like that. And if I really, really want it to be kind of, I don't care. Like, I was gonna say, I can add some cloud noise and just add some noise to it, but I honestly don't care. I really don't. I just want a very basic, flat volume that then I can use to create my low-lying kind of fog. It used to be that you would create a volume in Houdini by using the ISO offset, and that was like kind of like the Houdini sort of version of a volume, and then but it wasn't a VDB, so you had to kind of convert it to VDB. I don't even know, like, because I'm clicking on this guy and I'm seeing that it's got a VDB. I don't think I need this. So if you're following what I was doing and you added this convert to VDB, it might not be necessary after all. I do want a file cache because I want to save this as well. And once again, I'm going to change the name. I still want it in my same folder that I created here, and I'm just going to change this to just low underscore fog dot VDB. Let's change it. Let's put an underscore 1 just in case. And save to disk. Bingo. Okay. Let's get out of this guy. Let's go to file. Call this low fog. Give it our little green color since this is getting rendered. Let's jump into it, and I'm going to point it to the low fog that was created. It's really, really small file because there's just nothing to it. It's just a few voxels and it's this kind of rectangular flattened box shape. That's it. And that brings it in, and I'm gonna say bring it in as a packed disk primitive and show me full geometry so that I see what this thing looks like. So then we're gonna jump back into our OBJ context, as this is called, or well, because it says right here OBJ. Look at that. Zoom out of my scene, and I want to make this gigantic. I do, so probably 500, even more, about 1,000. Whoa, that's 10,000. 1,000 is fine. And I want to move it because I don't really want it that close to the camera. I mostly want to use it for my city. I'm going to do, just so that we can kind of see a little bit what the hell we're doing, is I'm going to get rid of the clouds for right now. And most importantly, I'm going to get rid of my haze because I just want to see what this low-lying fog is going to do for us. That's all. Oh, and one more thing we need to do is we need to assign it a material. So I'm gonna just create a brand new VDB volume material. I was gonna option click on one of those guys and drag and drop so that we have a you know, like a copy of these guys, but I've been kind of messing with them. I'd rather start from scratch for this particular low lane fog. I know right away I don't really want scattering right now. Let's call it low fog, since that's the name of our object. So like this is all like in case, like, I don't know, like 10 years from now I reopen this thing and I'm trying to kind of figure out what the hell I did, and like this should, if I name things a little bit, you know, like what they belong to, it should be easier for me to kind of figure out what's what after the fact. Okay, so I'm just going to click on this guy and assign it my low fog VDV material. And then let's fire up our IPR. So we have this fog, and right now it's like, it's too high, it's a little too thick, so let's kind of adjust it a little bit. Let's start with the size. So it is nice and wide, it's huge, maybe even larger than it needs to be, but whatever. But let's adjust the height, let's compress it, 0.5. So now what I want to do is, it's way too dense. I mean, this looks like some weird fog bank in the distance, it doesn't even feel right. So the first thing we're gonna do is let's create the transparency here. Just gonna make this white and leave the transparency scale at 1. And then I'm gonna put the density a lot lower, like something like this. So this is kind of cool. 0.05 maybe. Just want a hint of it, because remember we have the haze that's also going to help with the distance. I just want like just a little bit more towards the bottom of, you know, of our scene. As a matter of fact, let me see here. Let me just kind of bring back the height, because I think I like it a little bit higher. But yeah, you know, this is kind of cool, you know. So now let's bring back our haze. So so basically here, let me show you with and without. So this is what we had originally, and pay particularly close attention to the bottom of the building. And then this is what we're rendering now. See? Look at that and that. Let me get rid of this guy. See? Before and after. Before, after. I mean, we don't have the clouds, obviously, but... So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of digging this. I mean, we're still looking at a very low-res IPR, but... Actually, you know what? Let me stop the IPR. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set it to proper render. And I'm going to up the quality considerably. Maybe not considerably, but a little bit more. And I'm going to hit render, and then I'll pause this, and then we'll take a look. Okay, we're back. Done with the render. So I'm going to tell you, every once in a while, it's a good idea to run a close to final render quality, or, you know, somewhat decent render, because it allows you to see like some details and stuff like that that normally you might not be able to see if you're just kind of staring at an IPR. I mean, you know, I'm not saying that you have to, like, you know, render something that's going to take like 4 hours, but at least kind of, you know, do like a nice, you know, semi final quality render every once in a while. I think it helps. I'm not really sure I need the haze, because this might be more of a post-production effect, so I'm probably gonna like take the haze out and just deal with this low lane fog, which I think is gonna do like most of the work that we need anyway, just to kind of give us, you know, this sense of distance. All right, so we made it through part 3 with the clouds and the haze and atmospheric effects and so on and so forth. So what's coming up in part 4 is that we're going to be refining the scene, we're going to refine some of the textures, maybe add some additional elements, just trying to kind of make everything ready for our final render. So on that note, thank you for making it this far, and I'll see you in part 4.